It is a little cloudy outside, so I am sorry for the lighting, but I thought I might as well just go ahead and film my April wrap up because it's already halfway through May. So let's get into that. I did read in total 4 books in the month of April, and then I did not finish 1 book. First, I read Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas, and this was one of my least favorite reads of this year. Probably even if I combine last year and this year, like it was not a book for me. So I decided to read this because I'd read Birthday Girl by her and I enjoyed her character writing enough to want to read something else by her. I thought, okay, if she could do that with Birthday Girl and she really hooked me with their story, then maybe she can do that with another book. And this actually takes place in high school, so it is more of like a new adult kind of theme. It's their senior year of high school, so I figured because it's in high school, some of like the sexual stuff would be toned down, but that was not the case, and I just really didn't like it at all. These 2 characters in this book, they've been pen pals for the past 7 years, I believe, and he meets her in real life. She doesn't know it's him, and so then they have these constant encounters from that point on, and he always knows who she is, but she doesn't know who he is, so he kind of knows the whole time and she doesn't. They're just horrible to each other. I couldn't stand either of these characters. It was very strongly hate to love, but there was just something very icky about it to me, and just the way they were so cruel to each other, and I didn't like it at all. Like I couldn't stand it. I'm so surprised that I actually finished it, and I only finished it because I had heard this book was so highly recommended by some people, so I thought, okay, I gotta keep reading this because people really love this book. Give this book like 2 stars, kind of really in the 1 to 2 star range, because that's how poorly I felt about this book after I finished reading it. And thank goodness it only took me 2 days to read. It was a really quick, easy read. Would not recommend. I did not like it, and I was very disappointed by that. Next, I read a really good book, and that was Dear Erin by Mariana Zapata. So this book takes place before From Le Cave with Love. It's following Jasmine's sister, and I have a reading vlog where I'm reading this book in that vlog, and I really, really loved it. This is a military romance. The girl, Ruby, she is writing letters, and she's written letters before to people who are overseas, who are fighting, and it kind of just helps to boost morale for them, and she just kind of tries to take their minds off of things, bring them back to reality, stuff like that. Anyways, and she becomes really close friends with one of the soldiers named Erin, and they just become really close. They're emailing all the time. They start instant messaging. So good. Very slow burn. I wanted to keep reading constantly. There wasn't a point where I wanted to put it down. I loved the dynamic of the emails and the text messages and IMs, things like that, the first half of the book, and then it does get into like a normal narrative after that. So overall, just a fantastic book. Going into the next book, I read The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, also by Mariana Zapata, and this book gets 5 stars. This is a football romance. Is it a sports romance just because the guy plays a sport? Like, does that automatically make it a sports romance? I don't want to give away like the big thing about this book because that was a surprise to me, and I was so excited when I realized that this was like what the book was going to be about. So I don't want to say what it is. So I'll just kind of tell you what happens in the beginning-ish. So we have this football player who is very talented. He plays for some team in Dallas. I don't know if it's a real team or a fictional team because that's how much I know about sports. He plays for this team. He's absolutely incredible, but he has no relationships outside of what he does. He doesn't really have any friendships. He doesn't really have anyone in his family. He's a very cold seeming person. And we start off and there's our main character, and she's worked for him for 2 years, and she's actually at the beginning of the book contemplating quitting her job and how she's gonna tell him. And she's been a very good assistant to him. She's really gotten to know him, but he's never even opened up to her. He doesn't even see anything except like his job and football. She's contemplating quitting, and so that's kind of where the book takes off, and I really just am not going to share what happens from there because I just want you to read it and be overjoyed by what it happens, because the whole thing is just so good. There were so many good things in this book that I want to talk about, but I can't because it'll spoil things. But just know I gushed and smiled uncontrollably over some of these things, and I loved the characters. Like, oh, thank goodness for books with good characters, because I was really sad after my first read of the month. But after that, my final fully finished book of the month was A Little Too Late by Stacey Hart, and I give this one 4 stars. So I really enjoyed this one. as well. I don't think anything was going to compare to The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, which if I had read this in a different setting, I may have given it a 4.5 stars, but I just read that amazing book and then I read this, so that, you know, just keeping that in mind. But I still really enjoyed it. So this book kind of takes place in her Austen series. It's not a part of the series necessarily, but you do get introduced to one of the characters that is the main character in this book in that series. So they're all companion novels. Let me give you a little synopsis because I'm being very confusing right now. So we have our two main characters, Charlie, who is a single father raising 2 young children in New York City, and then an au pair that he hires from Holland. And she has just gotten out of a really bad job as an au pair before, and she really needed a fresh start and quick, or else she would have to go back home. And she's in her young 20s. She has a really wonderful way with children, and it's her relationship with Charlie, who's this really sweet, wonderful guy who is like a former workaholic trying to become a good father after his divorce and just really struggling with parenthood and being single again. Really, really enjoyed it. And one thing that I really, really, really loved about this was our main character. She loved to bake, and so there would be so many times you would see her in a moment of stress or something, and she would be in the kitchen baking, and then the description of all the pastries that she made were incredible. And I actually have Googled how to make this apple strudel thing. I forget what it's called, but anyways, I've actually looked it up because I really want to make it. They're like these little apple turnovers and they sound so delicious. But yes, I have actually researched how to make some of the things she talked about because it made me really hungry and want to try that. So I love books when the main character bakes. It just inspires me, and so I really, really like that about this book. If that sounds at all interesting to you, I would encourage you to pick it up because it was just light, fluffy, and cute, and I liked it. The final thing that I did not finish, actually, it was Piece of Work, and this is a Stacey Hart book. So I was so disappointed because I had read the Austen series by her. I read this book a little too late, and then this is part of her Red Lipstick collection series, I think, and she's been promoting. She just released one more book in the series called Well Suited. They're all companion novels still, but I was 40% the way through, and I just couldn't stand it anymore. And after reading the first book of the month, Punk 57, I was just not gonna waste my time reading something that I wasn't enjoying. And I learned my lesson with that book, so I decided just to call it quits. Something about this book, it just didn't seem at all authentic to me, and it didn't seem like her other books to me. So I don't know what it was, why I couldn't get into it, but this is following this girl. She lives in New York City. She's a grad student for art history, and she just got an internship at the Met, and so she's working with these people there. There's really snooty ladies she's actually working with, but then her big boss, she actually starts working with on projects, and he's like the cold and aloof and I'm too cool for everything type, but also I have a jaded past kind of thing. But there was just something so inauthentic about it, and the way he treated her is really what made me get at this book. And I don't want to obviously share what happens if you're still interested in it, but just the way he treated her, I couldn't continue reading something like that, even if like it came back that he apologized and he saw the error of his ways. I unfortunately had to stop reading that. And that's not to say that I'm not going to try to read the other books in her series, because I still think I want to read Well Suited that just came out. But that's the great thing about these books, is that they're all companion novels. 4 of the Stacey Hart books I've read, I've really liked. And unfortunately, this was the first one that didn't work for me, but I'm not gonna give up on an author for one book that I don't like. So anyway, that is all that I have to share for the month of April. It was just kind of average of a reading month for me. Like, I haven't DNF'd a book, or I haven't given less than a 3-star review in a while, so having 2 of those in a month just kind of wasn't the greatest. And now I'm in a bit of a reading slump, which is probably because of that. So we're just gonna move along. But anyways, I wanted to share this even though it's a little late. Thank you for watching, and happy reading.